If you've been scrolling through endless spec sheets, watching side-by-side videos, and still feel stuck on whether a conference camera will actually make your meetings feel less like a glitchy Zoom nightmare, this review is here to clear the fog. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I spent a few days setting up the Rally Bar in a home office, a small co-working room, and even a conference-style tabletop to see how it behaves when the lighting drops, when people move around, and when you're trying to keep the tech side invisible. The goal is simple. Tell you if this all-in-one 4K box is worth the price tag, or if you'd be better off with a separate camera and speakerphone combo. First off, the biggest worry most buyers have is, will I actually need to tweak settings every time I start a call? The Rally Bar is built around a plug-and-play philosophy. You connect it to a laptop via USB-C or HDMI, power it up, and the device announces itself as a webcam and a microphone. There's no hidden menu that forces you to dive into a separate software suite. The on-screen controls are limited to a tiny touch strip on the front that lets you mute the mic or toggle the camera on and off. In my testing, the auto-framing RightSight feature kicked in the moment someone started speaking, and it kept the speaker centered even when two people were side by side. That means you can walk away from the device after you start a meeting and still trust it to keep the right people in view. Autofocus confidence is a common pain point with lower-priced 4K cams that chase a moving subject but never quite lock. The Rally Bar uses a laser-based focusing system that feels more like a DSLR than a typical conference camera. When a presenter moved from behind a laptop to standing up at a whiteboard, the focus shifted instantly without the wobble you sometimes see with contrast-detect lenses. In a real-world scenario, think a product demo where you have to show a prototype held up to the camera. The image stayed sharp even as you turned the object around. That level of reliability makes a difference if you're presenting visual details that would be lost on a softer focus. Low-light behavior is another litmus test. The unit advertises superior clarity up to 4K, and in a dimly lit conference room, about 150 lux, the image was still clear enough to read a slide's bullet points without cranking up the monitor brightness. The camera's wide 90-degree diagonal field of view helps because it captures more ambient light than a narrower lens would. However, it's not a miracle worker in a dark basement. If you're planning to run calls in rooms with only a desk lamp, you'll notice a slight graininess. The practical takeaway is, for typical office lighting, the Rally Bar handles it well, but don't count on it to replace proper lighting rigs. Stabilization isn't a headline feature on a stationary device, but the internal sensor does compensate for tiny vibrations like the hum of an air conditioner or the slight shake when the table is bumped. During a test where I lightly tapped the tabletop, the video stayed steady, which is reassuring for larger meeting tables where the bar might be mounted on a swivel arm. It's not a replacement for a gimbal, but you won't get that jittery handheld look that can be distracting. The lens ecosystem is essentially a single, high-quality glass element paired with the laser focus module. You can't swap lenses, but that's by design. Logitech wants to keep the setup simple. For most business users, that's a benefit because you don't have to decide between a 24mm or a 35mm lens. If you're a hobbyist filmmaker hoping to use the camera for creative shots, you'll feel constrained. The device shines when you need a reliable, consistent field of view for group calls, not when you want to experiment with depth of field. Menu friction is minimal. The only time you need to interact with a software interface is during the initial firmware update, which runs automatically when you plug it into a laptop with internet. After that, the on-device controls cover everything you need day to day. There is a Logitech Sync dashboard for enterprises that lets IT admins roll out settings across many units. But for a single-person office, that layer feels unnecessary. The learning curve is essentially zero. Turn it on, step back, and let RightSound do the audio magic. Speaking of audio, the integrated beamforming mic array is worth a separate mention. In a test where 3 people spoke from different corners of a medium-sized room, the microphone prioritized the active speaker and reduced background chatter from a coffee machine in the background. The result was a clean, natural-sounding voice that didn't need a separate external speakerphone. If your meetings often involve multiple participants in the same space, this built-in solution eliminates the need for a separate tabletop mic. Battery confidence isn't applicable here because the Rally Bar runs off a power brick, which is actually a plus for reliability. You never have to worry about the device